There's nothing I regret more as a simmer than not being more organized and keeping track of all the stories I've played in the past. I could not tell you anything today about the first families I created in The Sims 2, 3, and 4 because there's no evidence they ever existed. And even though I've taken a bunch of screenshots since then, I don't remember the story behind most of them. I really wish I had documented all the fun stories in The Sims I made. I just didn't have much of a system back then and didn't know where to start. But over the years, I figured out how to make it easy to remember everything I care about so that I never lose my Sim stories again. So in this video, I'm going to share how easy it can be to create your own system so you don't make the same mistake. I've already helped thousands of simmers keep track with the systems I've made, so you're in good hands. But first, what are even the struggles we're trying to combat with having a system? There are many struggles of a disorganized simmer. For one, a messy mods folder. And from that comes a lot of headaches and frustration from endless hours of troubleshooting, wasted time doing a 50-50 method, trying to figure out why your saves are broken. It's super easy to just forget the plot. You have no way to really know where you left off and where you were even planning to go with your storyline. Every time you open up the game, your Sims just feel like strangers again. Another issue, another struggle? Screenshots without context. You have folders full of random pictures, but no idea anymore about names of the people in the photo, where they even were, or even the story behind the photo. And it's a real shame because in that moment you took the screenshot because the moment meant something to you, but you don't remember anymore what it was all about. Scattered ideas is another struggle. Your best ideas are split between a bunch of post-its, random notebooks, and apps. Or lost files. A disorganized simmer is not one to make regular backups, if at all, so you're basically always one busted hard drive away from losing everything. And since a disorganized simmer doesn't really keep track, that can also mean entire histories, lore is gone forever because there was never an effort made to document them. Empty legacies is the next struggle. You might have put a lot of thought in the family's backstory, or the founder's origin story, but you never kept track of either, so they're basically destined to be forgotten. There's no record of the family homes that your legacy had, also the homes at the beginning and maybe the different stages they had, nothing. No family tree saved. You're completely dependent on the buggy one in the game. So, after enough time, how much is really left of all that lore? Then we have the issue of unwieldy custom save files. That's been a huge trend the last few months or even a couple years to create your own custom save file for the game, which sounds like a lot of fun, but maybe less so if you're not the most organized simmer. There's a lot to keep track of, lots to manage, builds, households, worlds, lore. It's a pretty big endeavor, and it's hard to stay on top of all that if you're not organized. If you want to create a custom save file, you probably want the demographics to be balanced, the households to be connected in some meaningful way, the lore to make sense across the different worlds. But if you're creating everything on a whim as you go, it's really hard to keep that red thread. Another struggle? Overwhelming challenges. I imagine you can even probably be hesitant to start one in the first place because the thought of keeping track of so many goals, and keeping track of all that progress can be pretty overwhelming if you don't know where to start. Or maybe you have started playing a challenge, you're knee-deep, but you're not really clear on the progress you've made. The whole point of the challenge is to actually make progress and achieve something, so if you have no record of that, or no clear way of keeping track, then where is the fun? It's also a shame because you have achieved something, maybe if you have, accomplished a few of the goals, but if you have no record of it, it's kind of a shame because it's like you did the challenge and you achieved it, but you've got no record of that accomplishment. I've been following along fellow simmer Silly's journey of building their own PNW custom save file, and I watched their video about the regrets they had when making the save file. It broke my heart to hear that not being more organized was one of their regrets as well. Here's a quote from their video. I store all the lore in my head, and all the notes that I take are on various sticky notes, the backs of receipts, notebooks. The notes are spread across multiple of them. I'm certain that there are little details here and there that kinda got lost along the way. And scattered notes and lost lore wasn't the only issue. Silly also felt like being disorganized slowed them down, and they potentially missed opportunities for more intentional, balanced world building and demographics. They also didn't keep track of which CC they used for each build, though I imagine the Sims 4 tray importer can probably help out with that. Silly was thinking about keeping track at some point, but didn't know where to start or how to build a system for themselves. Luckily, they have a video catalog documenting some of the work they did to build their save file, but that'll take them a while to get through. And it's not really common for most of us to have recordings of our work to sift through when we realize we've forgotten something. I think a lot of simmers struggle with being disorganized and end up regretting it, which is a big reason I do what I do. That regret is such a shame, because knowing what I know today, this is totally avoidable, even for the most disorganized simmer. I want to help as many simmers as possible avoid the same fate. Since day one, I've been all about helping simmers play with purpose, and a big part of that is helping you become more organized so I can save you some of the regret I felt myself. It can still be hard to come up with a system that works for you if you don't know where to start, and so I want to help you with that. It can be time consuming, and it might seem easier to just skip that part and jump to the fun part of creating, but a good system can actually save you time in the long run. Being organized can actually give you more headspace to be creative as well. And it doesn't have to be perfect or take a lot of work to set up. Before I came up with my sim planner and all the digital templates that followed, I sat down and asked myself the most important question. Not where I want to log things, and I didn't start with the question of what to keep track of in particular either. The key question to ask yourself before you start is, why do you want to keep track of your Sims? Answering that question will inform how you answer all of the questions after that. It will make sure you only keep track of what matters to you. If you're sentimental like me, you'll probably want to remember everything. But with so much going on in our saves, what is actually worth keeping track of? Let me break it down so you can focus on what matters most and skip the rest. First things first, let's start with your why. What's your purpose for keeping track? It could be for sentimental reasons. You want to feel more connected to your Sims. You're growing a Sims family legacy and you want to preserve their history. Or maybe you don't want to forget about all the stories and the Sims you've made. These are all very valid reasons to want to keep track of your Sim. But then there are also practical reasons. For example, you want to make it easy to pick up a save after a break. You want to have a record of your lore to build upon. This will make it easier for you to continue the story as it makes sense with the one you've played so far. Or maybe you want to keep track of your challenge progress. Or you're a builder and you want to collect research for your builds. Or very practical, you simply want to stay on top of your mods folder. And so you want to create a catalog of all the mods you have installed, when you last updated them, and so forth. Whatever is important to you about your game or what you want to achieve determines which details you should document. Next, decide what to track in particular. What specifically matters to you about your gameplay? You can ask yourself various questions to get to the bottom of this. For example, which details do you wish you remembered about your gameplay from 5 years ago? Or which details would help you reach your goals? Which ones would make the game less overwhelming? It all depends on what's important to you. And so if we look at the different types of players and their approach to this, what could be important to them. So a legacy player, a builder, a storyteller, and a mods and CC collector. Maybe you're just one of these people, maybe you're all four. I've already put a lot of thought in my templates and what I like to collect. And so I want to give you some ideas of what you can do for your own system. So for a legacy player, what is important and what's key? Lineage, heritage, and lore. So you want to probably keep track of those three things. Lineage being the family connections, the relationships, who was heir, who was founder, the heritage being, maybe family values, traditions, the actual estates they own, the lore being the memories and whatnot. Keeping that in mind, what would you keep track? Of course, we start with a family tree. There's no getting around that. Ideally, you're using a proper genealogy app. You might also have a family crest that you want to keep in memory. One thing I also like to remember is, when did I actually create this legacy? When did I start it? Of course, you want to keep an overview of the heirs and spares in your legacy. And, of course, information about the founder as well. Speaking of the founder, you'll probably also want to keep a log of their vision. What did they actually have in mind for the legacy that they founded? What are also maybe the common traits between the different family members? What are the rituals, traditions, secrets, values that this legacy stands for? What are some of the heirlooms that have been passed down? Who is the current holder of a certain heirloom? What's the story behind an heirloom? You might want to remember the family home and any businesses related to this legacy. Naturally, of course, probably one of the most important things, photos and stories that you've collected over the generations. You might also want to keep an overview of these stories and photos per generation. And of course, you'd probably like to know the save file that's associated with this legacy. When you jump back into the game, it makes it easier to select the correct save file to continue playing that legacy. And for a builder, what's important to them? I imagine references, so maybe, floor plans and the like, any ideas you might have. So it could be a theme, an architectural layout, maybe you have a family or a story in mind that you want to build for. And as a builder, you're probably not just building 1 or 2 homes and calling it quits. So it'd be probably pretty handy to have a collection of your works in progress and of course your finished builds as well. And so keeping that in mind, what might you want to keep track of? So for one, the build status. Are you in the planning or brainstorming stage? Are you currently working on the landscaping, maybe the interior design, or it's a finished build uploaded to the gallery? What is the current status? You probably want to upload a thumbnail as well, a photo of the build once it's complete. You'll also want to maybe remember the lot and property type. So type being, community residential, property type, restaurant, home, apartment, etc. The size, self-explanatory. This is probably also key if you're building a custom save file, then you can remember, that build was 20 by 20, so I can plop it in this world, in this neighborhood. That's why I find it quite useful to keep track of these seemingly unimportant details, but having that quick at hand can be super useful later on if you are using that build for another purpose, and it not just being your creative outlet in the moment. World and neighborhood, so if it's a build that you've placed somewhere already, where can you find that build? The value of the build, again, this could be relevant for a save file you're building, so it's clear for which income bracket the home is even accessible for. Amenities, so does it have a dishwasher, a balcony, a garage, things like that. I find it actually quite fun because I like to think of this almost like a realtor, like a real estate manager. And these are the type of details they would also collect for certain properties. And so I just personally find it quite fun. And it makes me think about builds I might make, which I'm not a builder, but if I were, then I like to think of it as in, for what family could this be for? And knowing the amenities, actually reflecting back on what you've included or haven't included in the home, gives you an idea of like what kind of household could actually move in here. And again, if you're building a save file, that can be a key detail. Any lot traits and challenges that you've associated with the build can also be key. So this is mainly for The Sims 4 important. I don't think The Sims 2 or Sims 3 had lot traits or anything of the like. The style, is it contemporary, modern, Art Deco. Like another reason why it's good to collect these details, if you're using an app like Notion, you can then easily filter for those builds based on the data that you've collected about them. So if you quickly just wanted to see all the medieval style builds you've created, or all of the 20 by 20 builds, because again, you're creating a custom save file and you want to use builds from your own collection in that save file, or maybe you're not even a builder and you just want to collect a bunch of builds that you see online. I have that. I have a huge collection, like hundreds of builds that I've collected from other creators that are just waiting to be placed into save files. And I've collected this information about them, so it's easier for me to pick and choose which build would suit which area, or which story I'm currently telling or playing. Of course, if you're a builder, you're going to want to collect your ideas, and with that, maybe any notes and resources you have about those ideas or you're going to need for those ideas, any goals you have, like maybe you're doing a challenge, like a build challenge, and you have to have a certain amount of objects in certain rooms or stories or whatever is part of the build challenge. You can keep track of those goals as well, or it might be something you want to keep track of. So those are some examples of details a builder might want to collect and keep track of. Now, what would a storyteller care about? So their main purpose for keeping track, or what they would want to keep track of, would be The Sims, of course, any planned and played stories and ideas. And so if we're looking into this, what would they keep track of? Sims related things, details could be, of course, the portrait of the Sims. You're going to want to remember what they look like. Ideally, you have a collection of screenshots from every life stage so you can see how the Sims developed over time, maybe even a lookbook of their different looks throughout the ages. So, your everyday, party, swimwear, and all that stuff, that you can see how maybe their style has changed over time. Their life state, so are they human, werewolf, their traits, their backstory, relationships they have. So parent-child, of course, super important, but their partners, their enemies, their friends, their colleagues. What would you like to remember? Of course, their goals could be something you want to remember. Their achievements, naturally, their career history, which is really cool in The Sims 3. You can actually look up a Sims career history in the user interface panel. That's really neat. But you might want to keep track of aspirations, skills, stuff like that. Businesses that they've owned, any other properties that they own. So if you've got like this real estate mogul, you're playing with the land grab family and they own half the city, then you can have a list of properties that they own. Life moments, of course, that of course mean getting married, birthdays, deaths, of course, but you might also want to collect information from in between. So if you wanted to keep track of a memory, you would want to keep track of the story, of course, behind it. The screenshots, obviously, where and when, maybe also who was involved. So this is a handful of details that a storyteller might want to keep track of for their Sims and memories. And, a storyteller might even have some overlap with the builder. They might want to keep track of the different locations in their save file and stuff like that. And of course, maybe also overlap with the legacy player. Maybe part of the storyteller's story is a legacy. So here we have some overlap with what you might want to keep track of. But if you're a mods and CC collector, so vanilla isn't your vibe, what is important to you? For one, of course, any installed mods and CC that you have, and favorite creators. So there's not much that you would really need to collect here or keep track of as a mods and CC collector. So for one, mod status. Is the mod broken? Is it currently compatible with the game? When did you last update it on your end, so that you can compare that with when the modder last updated the mod on their end, so you can see if yours is out of date and you can update it then. The website, the source of where you found the mod type, the thumbnail could be useful. The subfolder name, so when you're collecting your mods in your folder, you want to collect each mod in their own each dedicated subfolder, so no more than one folder deep, otherwise the script files won't work. But if you just do one folder deep in the mods folder, you want to give each one of them a dedicated name. And so you want to keep track of those folder names so that when you're going through the catalog in your spreadsheet to see when you last updated a mod, if you need to update it, then you have the folder name that you can easily find then in your mods folder. And maybe you want to remember if it's favorited. So I personally like to keep track only really of my installed mods with a spreadsheet. You can do so with CC. For example, I do that sometimes for my default replacements, but this can be a bit tedious because, I mean, with mods, what are we looking at? Maybe 100? If you're bad like me, 100 mods in your folder. But CC, we're talking thousands of files. I like to use the Sims 4 mod manager to keep track of that. It like automatically loads your CC with thumbnails and everything, so you can sift through and so you can quickly deinstall things that you don't want to use anymore. You can usually also batch update any broken CC with the Sims 4 Studio, so it's really just installed mods that you have to stay on top of for the most part. But as you can see, even if you focus on one purpose, there's still quite a lot of little things that you want to keep track of. A lot of little details you want to remember. How can we make it easier to keep track of all these things? The solution is to create templates. A template is a predefined format you can use to collect information in a structured way. Once you know what you want to keep track of, you can create a template with fields for those details. Then you can just fill in those fields as you go instead of being intimidated by the blank page. It also acts as a reminder of what you actually want to keep track of. For example, for Sims, you might want to, always keep track of their traits, life stage, aspirations, and skill progress. You can set up a template anywhere you like to keep notes, for example, in a doc file or Notion or OneNote. If you prefer pen and paper, you can always print out the doc file and reuse it. It can be as simple or complex as you need it to be. You can just simply have a notebook dedicated to The Sims, but with a template, you don't have the blank page paralysis anymore. So this is basically something that would hold you back from keeping track because you constantly have to remind yourself what are the details you want to keep track of, in what way. Having a template takes away this mental load. It also makes it easy to consistently keep track. Since you're reusing the same format, you'll always be reminded to keep track of the traits, life stage, skills, because your template is set up that way. For example, when I first created the Sim Planner, I made sure to include a Sim profile template in there, a page that was dedicated just for your Sims information. So you can fill it out with pen and paper. It created a designated structured space for that part of your Sims history to live. You would simply fill out what matters. If I want to add more information or look back on what happened, I know exactly where to find it. Let me show you some examples. So this here is a page out of the Sim Planner. It's a Sim profile spread, so we have, of course, space to add the photo of the Sim, maybe a quote that they have, their name, their residence, their life stages, their current life state, what killed them if they're gone. You also have space to fill in their traits and their preferences here. Maybe they have a core value, so you can add that here. So this is a little space dedicated to their personality. Then you can add their biography here. There's space to add which generation they belong to and their role, so if they're an heir or a spare. Then we have here on this side space to add any relationships. So these little icons represent what kind of relationship they have. So if it's friends, lovers, family, you also have here 3 icons that you can designate your own meaning to. And then you can add more details about the relationship here. There's also space to add achievements. So for example, skills, any life goals that you've achieved. And you can add here the actual level that was achieved. And if it's been mastered, you can add a star. So this is an example of how I set up my Sim profile template in the Sim Planner. This is a page out of my digital Sim Life Planner that I created for GoodNotes. As you can see, again, consistent. I always make sure to have space for a portrait, name, residence, ages lived, occult. The benefit of having it here digitally in GoodNotes is you can erase things really easily. It's super easy to add stickers and different colors and different, you can add font, of course. So if you're not a very tidy writer, then this is very helpful because you can have nice, neat, super cute cursive font you can use. And this is just one page, so it covers the career and education, preferences, things like that. But in the planner, you also have a page dedicated to collect their skills, a page dedicated to relationships, things like that. So that's the benefit of digital as well. If you have a digital template, you can create as many pages as you want. You can click on undo button, things like that. So it's a bit more flexible than pen and paper, but of course, it is nice to also collect information with pen and paper because you have that haptic feedback and all that stuff. But yeah, it just depends on what kind of simmer you are, whether or not you decide to create a printable template or something that you use digitally. Another app that I recommend when it comes to building your own template is OneNote. OneNote is a free app that you can download and is pretty simple to use because it has a familiar notebook structure to it. So here's an example of the profile I created for August Tarot. As you can see, similar as to the templates before, we have space for the portrait of the Sim, space to indicate whether or not, they're a founder, heir, or spare, their role in the legacy, space to add further details about them, their life, their personality, goals, and whatnot, relationships. We also have space to add information about their story, so their biography, also to add pictures and details about certain milestones. So in OneNote, what's great is you can link pages with each other. So as you can see here, we have another page in my OneNote set up here that actually goes deeper into this specific memory and this milestone here, but it's linked here so that I have the memory on the Sims profile page so I can quickly navigate to that. And I also have here basically that overview of what has gone on in August's life. And again, you can keep it as simple or as complex as you want. Maybe you don't want all this. You can just simply, in OneNote, it's super easy to collect this information about your Sims. And as you can see, they're nicely organized in these little tabs here. So I definitely recommend OneNote if you're looking for a simple, free digital solution to keep track of your Sims. My all-time favorite app, though, to keep track of my Sims is most definitely Notion, though. It definitely has a bit of a learning curve, but nothing beats how your lore and your Sims and your legacies can be connected in this app, and how Notion formulas also help you see and find information right when you need it. So here's a look in my Notion setup. Here is a profile of Ida Muniz. We see when I created her, her save file, the game she belongs to. I have here, of course, her photo, various details about her, and it's super easy for me to fill in these details via these toggles here. I can, fill in her core details, personality details, family relationships, and whatnot. And then what I fill in is automatically displayed here. Also her further details like her traits, her career, life goal, and whatnot, any legacy she belongs to, maybe a legacy challenge that I've played with her, any properties that she's owned, as well as any business properties. I also have a section here for her backstory. Like, really, that's the beauty of Notion, or really a digital app in general. The sky's the limit. Because it's digital, you don't have the size of the paper blocking you or anything like that. You can also fully customize Notion. I really love that. For example, I have also her achievements listed here. I can see not only the different achievements, like I could list them in OneNote or my Sim Planner, and of course say, the current progress level, but here I can even track how much income she's made or lost from a certain career or skill. For example, she hasn't been quite lucrative with her painting skill, but she's made a good earning as an intern. She hasn't had much outgoing expenses with that, but these are things like you can really go really in depth with what you keep track of your Sim, and you can really customize that to your needs. Or for example, I can collect memories of my Sims, and these can be connected to a legacy, to a location, to other Sims. I can see when this actually happened in-game, like the game date. I just haven't found another app that lets me go in-depth as much as this one does. Like I mentioned before, you can have a legacy player, a builder, and whatnot, but what if you're all four? Or you have another playstyle entirely, like your cast player as well, and you want to collect a lookbook of your Sims. Well, I have that. So if I go to the photo album and I check out looks over years, I see here neatly organized all the different outfits Ida has had over her lifetime. Notion is just awesome. It really is. So I highly recommend it if you want to create your own templates for your Sims, if you want to save time and you want a system that is like amazing out the gate. You can grab mine. You can find a link below in the description. I know that not every Simmer has the patience or the time or the knowledge to build something like this. And so that's where I come in with my templates, and so you can grab that if you want to save time. But those are a few examples of how you can create a Sim profile, whether it's on paper or digitally, and include various details depending on what's important to you. I want to help you find your own system, how you want to keep track of your Sims. And a system is basically a framework to organize your information in templates. So it can be the categories that you organize them in, the structure that you use, the app and whatnot. It can be as simple as a binder, a collection of spreadsheets, or full-blown system in Notion like I showed you before with my Sim profile in the Sim Guardian. I love how Notion, it's not only possible to collect the various details about your Sims, locations and whatnot, but it makes it possible to actually connect all those Sims, memories and whatnot that you've collected. And it makes it easy to not only add that information, but also find it later as well. It's really the reason I've come to love Notion so much. And it's super flexible. You can be as complex or simple as you want to be with it. But if you really play into the strengths of Notion and take some time to learn it, and not just have a bunch of checklists and stuff like that, and use the databases and the formulas, it just blows everything else out the water. Like I mentioned, you can connect Sims with your lore, your locations and all that, and that makes it to where you don't have to fill things in twice because things are related to each other. Beforehand, when I showed the OneNote, if I link a memory to one page I don't think there are any backlinks or anything like that, so it's not a bi-directional connection, whereas in Notion, everything relates to the other. So that's how I'm able to, for example, keep track of parent and child relationships. For example, I can add a sim as a parent in one profile, and their profile is automatically updated to include the child in their own profile. And so I just love how you add information in one place, and if you set up your system right, then that information can be referenced everywhere else in the system. If you're using databases, and especially if you're using formulas and different linked views, it helps you pull up information when you need it and how you need it. And of course, what you care to track might change over time, which is another reason why I love Notion. It's super customizable and can adapt to the way you play for years to come. Once you get the hang of Notion, it's super easy to create templates to collect the details you want for your sims, your builds, and whatnot. And with the custom views and connected databases, you can change what you collect and how it's connected on a whim. But Notion formulas are really what brings it over the edge. I went on a full Notion binge for almost a year, diving deep into how Notion works, and have built the ultimate system to track our sims. I've done all the behind the scenes heavy lifting, so you just have to plug in your sims and their stories. I know not every sim has the time, patience, or knowledge to get into these things, and so I've created not only my own dream system, but it can be your dream system as well. I have the link below in the description if you want to skip building for yourself, and I'll also cue my quick little overview of the Sim Guardian and why I love it so much here. Okay, real talk. If you're anything like me, you care about your Sims, like deeply. You've got legacies, storylines, save files that actually mean something to you. But let's be real, it's easy to lose track. One day you're totally invested, and then suddenly you're not. You forget who lives where, what was supposed to happen next, or even why you love that sim in the first place. That's exactly why I made the Sim Guardian. This Notion system helps me stay connected to my sims by giving me one place to track everything. And I mean everything. I can see my entire save file at a glance, who lives where, all the lore, what everyone's working toward. Every sim has their own page for backstory, traits, relationships. I can even see their own businesses and shared memories. And every legacy has its own page as well to save their bloodline, heritage, and history. I can manage my rotational gameplay, challenges, storyline ideas. It's all here. Heck, I can even keep track of my mods and CC in this system. It's the most organized I've ever been. And honestly, it's the easiest it's ever been to keep track, because I don't have to figure out where to start. I've already done the work of setting things up. Now I can just fill it in. So yeah, it's $100, but if you're serious about your Sims, it's worth it, because the stories you're playing, they deserve to be remembered. So now that you see how amazing Notion can be, with some elbow grease and a lot of time, I want to help you build your own if the Sim Guardian is out of your budget, or if you're just more a DIY kind of simmer anyways. There are a ton of Notion tutorials out there, and I encourage you to watch them to get more comfortable with Notion in general, but there's not really anything out there showing how to make a template you can use for your Sims. If you want to learn how to create a digital photo album like I have in the Sim Guardian to give your screenshots more context, I welcome you to watch my step-by-step tutorial that you see on the screen now. It'll help you build a digital photo album similar to the one I made in Sim Guardian. And you don't even have to start from scratch. In the video, I build upon my free backstory template.